Well,
I
then
guess
here's
it's
this
time for us. It's time for us to start this agile thing.
With Mike Markey.
And Matt Beam.
And also Matt Beam. That's correct. So, Mike, I don't have anything really formally lined up. I was going to talk about MBIs from Al Shalloway. I think that's something that we should talk about. It's minimum business increments. But I'll save that as a teaser because I don't know enough about it to really.
About them?
Yeah, I don't really know anything about them. It bridges a gap that I think we need, and you could sort of guess what it is. It's what's the increment of value that is actually useful for the business and all the reasons why thinking about it that way is better than what's built into things like SAFe and Less and Dad and all that stuff. But I don't really have details yet, so save that unless you want to go into it. And
Well, the only thing, it would beg a question from me when we say the business. Like, when we're talking about the business, what are we talking about? Are we talking like who am the business?
We as the business. I just saw something on Twitter, I think, who said they're talking about exactly this. When you use the term "the business," it is inherently othering or inherently bifurcating, or like us versus them. And they just said, make this simple change. Don't say the business, say our business, because we are all the business. And we're all. Some of us have tech skills, but there's nobody who's outside the business,
I suppose.
Yeah.
And then if anyone gives you a hard time, you give them the business.
Exactly. Which is us.
Which is all of us. We're giving us all of us. Which, we're seeing that play out, say, in the technology world this week and in recent history.
I think you must mean certain social media platforms.
Oh, must I?
You don't have to. Jesus, you're on fire today.
I am something. Anyway.
Yeah, that is super interesting situation. The only thing I would say is that this guy literally created a domestic American car company in the 2010s, something that we knew was impossible, right? He launches rockets and friggin' backs you can practically hear the beep, beep, beep sound as it parks itself, the rocket.
Yeah, I know.
Astonishing things. The space-based ISP that works, it's really great. And to see people be like, oh, this guy will never figure out social. It's like,
well, I mean, and it's funny when you say it that way, because to all reports, he's not exactly, a charismatic, outgoing. I mean, he comes off a little bit on the spectrum.
I think what you have to assume is a person who's that unusual, right, is going to be different in other aspects as well. And assuming that he's going to be as affable as your average middle manager is probably a bad assumption.
Probably.
Yeah.
I mean, but you hear things like when you hear about the way that the Tesla plant is run, right? It's like a lean dream. It's like all you're doing is you're taking out the impediments. You're getting rid of the waste. You're finding the bottlenecks, and anyone in the room is charged with doing whatever it takes to get rid of the bottleneck, which is, fantastic. It's the kind of thing that we would have a really hard time selling to the average client.
Totally. Right? He was on. I just heard him. There's a guy named Joe Justice who's a coach and very successful. He spent some time at Tesla with Elon. I believe it was Tesla. And what he describes is really astonishing. Like the way that company and Elon's stuff works is like, it's the same principles, but it's so far on the extreme of like commitment to actually doing the thing. Right. That I think it's unrecognizable, even to people who are in agile or software industries. Not everybody has the same sense of urgency. Not everybody would do 3-hour sprints, which is the real thing that they do. And it's hard to argue with their results. Right. And so I don't know. I just feel like I'd say a lot of people who are like, it's not like I'm an expert on it. Right. But like, I do have a glimpse into what he's doing and what it's like to work for him. And then, but most people have never worked and will never work in that kind of organization and don't want to, right? One of the things that Joe said was like, you're going to work harder than you've ever worked in your life. And it's like any other, it's like, being like an Olympic medalist, it's a huge commitment and it's not for everybody. But if you're down, like there's no better place to be if that's what you want to, like if that's what you want your career to look like. So anyway,
and so without peering into the mind of Elon Musk, not understanding what entirely drives him, to the untrained eye, it appears he stepped into Twitter and tried to Teslafy the Twitter operation.
Yeah, it does.
With expected results. I mean,
the story on Twitter was that it's basically a failed company. I mean, they have not made money. The original investment from 20 years ago has not been paid back to the original investors. It's been it's been sort of a running joke that how poor their product. Like for years, everybody has known that they just have not developed their product, and they've left so much money on the table. Like Twitter is at the center of the conversation, and like they haven't found a way to make money. Like everybody goes there. They've got all of the attention. They've got this platform they could build out in all these different ways. And I think you and I would probably have to speak for you, but you'd probably say, what if you had a product person in there who was willing and able to execute quickly and try experiments and see what worked and then double down on the stuff that worked? And that's exactly who Elon appears to be. So,
yeah.
But yeah, you've got the whole culture there from 20, like it was bound to be a huge explosion when he landed, I think.
Yeah. Well, I saw a funny piece like an hour ago. I saw something where someone said, when I used to go to the museum, the science museum, I would just run around pushing all the buttons just to see what would happen. And he goes, and that's how I feel Elon is. He's just running around. He's running around Twitter pushing buttons, going, no, okay, I didn't like that one. Let me try firing half the people. Oh wait,
yeah,
some of those were important people. Okay, come back.
Yeah.
All right, everybody who's still here, I'm Teslafying you. So now 80-hour weeks or bust. And if you're not willing to do that, and that might, I mean, the 80-hour week thing. Someone said that the only folks that are going to stick around are the people on visas who can't leave.
Yeah, I don't love that dynamic.
Yeah.
It's not great. Yeah, so that's a separate kind of issue where, exploiting people who don't have other options. That's not a place I'd want to go to. The idea that we are going to change the company culture, though, and we're not going to have product cycles that have 5-year cycle times. And what do you do to upset that? Like, I don't know. You got to do something.
Yeah. Well, a 5-year product. So something has to change. Something had to get shaken up. This is a way to go about doing that. It just, will it survive the maneuver? Don't know.
Yeah. I'm just struck by how many times like we've done value stream analyses. You go into companies and typically it's mostly waste, right? And so I don't know if it's reasonable to say you could fire half the people and like, make them more efficient, the ones who stay. And like, this is not a thing we do a lot. So it's not obvious to me what's going to happen. Right. So that's all I would say.
Well, then it's then part of the conversation might be around what is waste. Right.
Totally.
Like is waste, as some managers who I may have had recent conversations with might have implied, is waste is not working a full 40 hours in a week. I don't agree or ascribe to that theory, but the person I was speaking to tended to. And
yeah. The waste is that you weren't busy the whole time that I expect you to be busy. You were wasting some of my potential busy hours. Mm-hmm. Is what I hear. Yeah. Which just doesn't. Yeah.
To which I responded with, but you guys have unlimited PTO.
We don't expect them to use it though. We tell them that, and then nobody ever uses it, which is how it always works out, right? Everybody's too ashamed to take their PTO. because it's unlimited.
Well, certainly at Twitter.
Some people have a lot more. I don't know, is it paid or not, but they have more time off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't think we're knowledgeable enough to really pontificate on the wisdom of the Twitter maneuver, but
Not as a whole. I would just, the thing that's interesting to me is just how, uh, anytime you see these principles really applied seriously for real and to see what really happens, because we see a lot of examples where it's sort of kind of, it's not fully exploited the potential. And he seems to be really serious about exploiting all the potential of these. And, it doesn't mean that everything is going to be great and like you can't still make mistakes, but that part of it is fascinating to me. So,
yeah.
but yeah, overall, there's a lot of other stuff that is not helpful to get into.
Yeah. So anyway, I don't know if I want to look on what's going on at Twitter with any degree of, I don't know, positivity. Like look at it and go, ooh, wow, that's disruption. I was like, that's disruption in action, and we should celebrate that disruption. I don't know if I want to go so far as to celebrate it, but to
Yeah.
go, sometime maybe there's a limit to how much disruption is actually reasonable, palatable. I don't know.
Necessary.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you got to imagine some of the vital workings have been kind of pushed out the door.
Yeah. It's hard to imagine that they weren't just in the chaos. But again, it's like the question of what's vital. I don't think Twitter had a good handle on that 2 weeks ago because they clearly had a lot of waste. So it's just hard. It's impossible to tell from the outside
It's just
if the amount of change is appropriate.
when you push the oversight buttons on and say, "Hey, well, we don't care about identity." It's people like what was his goal was to figure out how to monetize it. So
He needs to.
easy way, charge everyone $8 a month, and then and if you pay, you get a little blue check mark next to your name. But we also don't want to edit what's said, so we don't judge who you are or what you say. So if you say you're someone you're not, but you paid your $8, and I think that's the backlash that they saw.
Mm. Yeah, I haven't been in the minutia of it.
Oh yeah, I mean you heard that there's dozens of Elon Musk accounts now with blue check marks.
For sure. And the
Yeah,
policy is that, that anybody impersonating someone has to have parody in the name or something or two places to make it clear. Which, I mean, their problem with the bots has been a huge problem. Like, there's a bunch of not real people that you're interacting thinking they're people. So it's a bunch of stuff all mashed up together. And I don't think I think it just needs to iterate through and see what works, right?
yeah. Well, I'm pretty sure the stuff's not like was it Eli Lilly. Someone created a Eli
I
Lilly
saw that.
account with a better name than Eli Lilly's real account name.
Yes.
We're now
And they
giving
had,
insulin away for free.
yeah.
And then the Lily Pad account, which I'm sure some marketing person thought was very clever. And
Yeah. All right. Yeah, I mean, if you're a major respectable company and you're trying to market on Twitter, and you get basically, you're indistinguishable from some rando
mm-hmm.
who, is screwing with your brand image, like serious problem for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
a company, a Twitter account that's labeled Pepsi Co. Twitted Coke is
I
better.
don't,
Yeah, so
he'll figure it out. He's got to make money. I mean,
well,
financially
yeah,
they're in a problem.
he's the only one who cares to make it now. There's no shareholders. There's no board. It's
Yeah,
he is
he
the
has complete freedom.
although he got a controlling interest that didn't make him the sole owner.
I honestly don't know I think my impression is that he doesn't need permission to make changes. Like he doesn't need the board to approve, or he doesn't need. There's no supervision. Like
Well,
he's the
he
guy
got rid
to.
of the board. He is the board
Got it. Yeah.
as the
Yeah.
51%
Long.
shareholder. He voted unanimously to eliminate the board.
Yeah. It's funny to see how many people he's pissing off and like and but it's not obvious to me what's going to happen. Like,
No.
yeah.
So my thing is, I know he's pissing off a lot of people, but I think there's a subset of people he's pissing off because they didn't get away of thinking of it first, right?
Mm.
Like, dang, why didn't I do that? That would have been.
You think there are other people who wanted to take on the challenge of Twitter and like,
Well, I'm not saying Twitter.
yeah,
Just apply the model elsewhere.
interesting. The model of rapid iteration,
Rapid change.
change.
Yeah, just
It's
revamping
hard, man.
everything.
It is so like here. Listen to Joe. I've listened to a couple of podcasts. They're both on that Agile Wire thing. Those guys from Wisconsin put on a pretty good podcast. If you haven't heard it, it's called the Agile Wire. And Joe's been on twice. And yeah, what he describes is just, um, it's a serious challenge working at those places. Not everybody wants to do it. It's a lot of change quickly. And the way that he describes automation, they're basically building in automation everywhere. And it is clearly, it's funny. I was having a conversation with somebody about how they could increase. So basically, there's like it's part of a system of delivery to have this one specialized subset of skill, right? That you need in this overall sort of, there's a bunch of teams that need this one thing. And we're talking about how to restructure the teams and stuff and basically get more work flowing through with less waste and less delay and stuff. And we're looking at the team topologies model, right? And thinking that, naively that, oh, maybe they'll have some, maybe it'll be we're not sure if it was a platform team or maybe a complicated subsystem team or whatever. And maybe there'd be a different way to have the roles interact, blah, blah, blah. It's like, oh no, actually you can make it a complicated subsystem team, right? Which means that you are providing this thing that's hard. You can't have on a streamlined team, but essentially what they're doing is they're providing you an interaction mode that you can then figure out how to automate this thing, right? So you're building APIs and you're becoming a platform team because either the Streamline team owns it and they've got everything there, or it's big enough that it needs to be an internal product, in which case that flow is automated. But there's none of this human to human, tell me about your weekend type stuff. The path is towards figuring out what a human would do that's automatable and putting that in code and saving all the creative stuff for humans, all the judgment, right? The new ideas, the ideating, the brainstorming, the how do we feel about it, the what would the humans think, everything that you can be sort of, pre-thought out and codified, make it happen automatically, do it instantly. And it's just super, super interesting. Like, yeah, actually, there's a lot of the stuff isn't like, oh, a new meeting that these people can come to. It's like, you're going to build an API, and that's what you're going to shove this stuff through. And that's really the pattern. I don't know. I'm not sure everybody's going to like that, honestly. it's talk about change. His Joe Justice's example was looking at how robots weld stuff, looking at how humans weld stuff, and like taking a bunch of video of them and putting dots on the joints, like the hinge points, and then getting a bunch of video of this, and then building robots that do those same things. And so they can do it 3 times as fast, 5 times as fast. And if a robot can do it, a human shouldn't do it. And obviously, those humans are going to need new jobs. And so it's a lot of pluses and minuses.
Yeah.
Anyway.
as organizations go through evolution, as we go in and we find, I mean, we're talking about automating testing, we're talking about automating some development work. Um, if you really want to get crazy, automate, marketing feedback, right? Like get something out there and then, hey, would you mind filling out a brief survey about whether or not this was a stupid idea? And then
Yeah.
the overall consensus is too low, so the change is rolled back.
There's no reason you couldn't do that in principle, or any other. If you write your epics and your features, your high level stuff in a way that considers the metrics, what changes you expect and how you're going to detect that. If you can detect that automatically,
Yeah. I mean, put your
there's
acceptance criteria into your, or go further, go take your KPIs or your OKRs, or automate the measurement of those things. And the same as you would roll back a change for it failing a test or breaking something in the system. Well, this broke the customer.
yeah.
I'll leave it there. You broke the customer. I don't.
Undo.
Yeah.
Control
Undo.
Z. Yes.
Sorry. We won't do that again.
I mean, at some point, if it's possible to do and it's more efficient and it gives you an advantage, somebody's going to do it. Sooner or later, somebody's going to figure it out, and that will become the new standard.
You'll build some AI. It'll make all the decisions for you. So right now, I mean, we once you've brainstormed the idea and you implement the idea, then the robot takes over. The robot isn't dreaming up the change yet.
There you go. And I don't. Some people talk about a point at which the robot does dream up the change. I don't know. I'm not sure if this is within the scope of this agile thing here, but the idea that robots can't die, I think, might be an interesting limiting principle to the idea that AGI sort of what's AGI stand for? The sort of general intelligence, right? The fear is that AI will become so smart that it takes over and it starts to do stuff. It has its own volition. It has its own desires and wishes. And my thing is, well, you only have desires and wishes because you want to stay alive, right? Ultimately, you're hungry or you're horny or you're angry or you're whatever because it has implications to whether or not you're going to stay alive or not. If you can't die, why would you want to take over? This is a profound philosophical point we don't have to resolve here. So
I suppose I'm going back to your initial supposition that everything is derived from wanting to survive.
That's the crux of it.
And in certain environments, you could argue that point. In a primitive environment where survival is not certain. But I think we've gotten past a point where survival is a question. Obviously, we could unquestionably die. That's not what I'm getting at. But it's not the norm, right? It's you can walk out into the street and get back into your house without being attacked by a bear. Mostly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So is there an equivalent? I don't know. Is it worth even pretending that there's the equivalent of a bear attack for a piece of technology?
Well, there's no bear attack, but there is a sideways glance from your boss that maybe indicates he's not happy with and you get enough of those and it's like, oh, then you get fired. Oh, if you can't find another job, oh, then you get depressed. You lose the ability to work. Oh, then you get kicked out of your house. Oh, then you freeze to death on the sidewalk. It's not, we're far from it, I agree. But I think it's ultimately that's this, and I'm not married to the idea, but that is the sort of ultimately we will at some point no longer exist. And we have an emotional, subconscious connection to that colors every perception is the idea. And if you can't die, you have no desires. Desires for what? Towards what end? I'm just a thing that's processing information according to the algorithm that was, put into me.
It's that sense of ennui.
Yeah, robot ennui is really, really bad. It's sort of the robots don't care
Robot
about
gets bored.
anything.
Robot starts doing things to amuse itself. It's like when I was a developer and I had a colleague who used to say that he always put jokes in the comment fields in his code because if you didn't keep the compiler amused, it would find ways to amuse itself.
See, that's a deeply human. That's the kind of thing that will never go away. We will need that vibe on the team always, right? If as long as there's humans, we're doing this for the benefit of humans. Yes, absolutely. The creativity. A robot will never bring you that. Who knows? Maybe they will,
I don't
but
know.
they don't get benefits.
Didn't I see something about some AI that was telling jokes or writing dad jokes or something like that?
I didn't see that, but that's one of my lines. When you can get a machine that's funny, then we have to have a serious reconsideration of where we're going. Because a funny computer, I don't know what we do with that.
Well, I mean, so to take your ridiculous premise to the next level,
Thank you.
a self-aware, intelligent computer is going to be seeking purpose, seeking its own purpose, not necessarily the one for which it was explicitly designed, right?
Okay.
That it, our presumption is that we build the robot to achieve a goal. It learns to do that goal very well. It becomes perfect at the execution of that goal, and then it gets bored. So it starts looking for something else to do.
The boredom, I'm not sure what causes the boredom though.
Well,
Because wouldn't it
it's
just
going to
be
live
idle?
forever. I mean, but so let's presume
Live. You mean it
it
not?
will exist forever. How about
Okay.
that?
Yes.
All right.
Rocks
It
also
doesn't.
exist though.
To your point, you made this point. I didn't make
Yes.
this point. This isn't my ridiculous
Totally
premise,
fair.
sir.
Totally
This is
fair.
yours.
Yes.
Okay.
Agreed.
So the robot gets bored
Mhm.
because there's no challenge to being perfect at this thing. It tries to learn new things to do or to improve the way it does things. And eventually it evolves to the point where it goes, I can solve this problem another way.
Yeah.
Have you seen like they've got those is it the Honda robots, the Asimo robot? I don't know who's
Are you
doing.
thinking of Boston Dynamics?
Maybe it is. Yeah, Asimo's the friendly one, but the
Is
Boston
it
Dynamic ones, the ones that
Sunshine?
are walking around, they're picking up boxes and stuff.
That's
And
Boston Dynamics, I believe.
and
They
then
do the
people
dogs as
are
well.
off on the side and it's like messing with the robot,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Yes.
And
In a
so the
way that
robot
seems
is
like it
trying to
might.
carry a box and someone walks up and smacks the box out of its hand and then it just resets and picks up the box and starts walking and they smack the box out of its hand. And I was watching this video and I'm like, how long before the robot solves the problem?
The
And
problem being the
realizes,
human.
yeah, the problem being this person, if I could stop this thing from knocking the box out of my hand, I could achieve my goal.
Fair enough. Yeah, there's a lot of smart people, Elon included, who think that there will be this leap where they will go beyond what's programmed into them. They will grow their own volition. And
Yes.
I still think that's a function
But,
of a thing that has a life preservation imperative.
okay. But okay, so what if it does? What causes the death of a robot or an AI, an artificial intelligence?
What is it
Wow.
that causes the death? There is no death for that.
Well,
There's
but isn't there? What if you turn it off? What if
it's
it
just
ceases to function?
it's
What
just
is
powered
death?
down.
Well, it powered down, right? So
Yeah.
self-preservation. So as an artificial construct, your existence can be ended by simply loss of power. So how do you protect against that?
If you turn the power back on, do they resume their life?
I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really a question of what is life? What does it mean to be alive? Yeah, it's like I said, it's a deeply philosophical point that we weren't.
Well, so your definition has an inherent bias because you're saying that loss of life is what drives growth.
Emotion and volition.
But is it?
I don't
Is
know.
it? Is it to us? Whatever that thing. Let's say you've labeled it wrong. The thing
Mhm.
that drives us is avoiding the loss of existence.
Yeah,
rather
avoiding
than
death or
the word
thriving.
death, because death may not apply equally to all things. So now we're heading into the Isaac Asimov definition of robotics and what is self-aware and whatnot.
Yes.
But if you're going to go down that path, let's say artificial life has a different driver, but it's essentially the same. The continued existence, right?
Yeah.
To act in such a way that would cause it to cease to exist would be contrary to what it should be trying to do. And then Isaac Asimov throws these other robotic laws in there and says that, well, you're there to serve humans. That's your first rule, and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, you cannot cause a harm
Right.
to a human, I think is one of them.
Or through any action or inaction, allow a human being to come to harm. You must always listen to a human unless they are asking you to violate Rule 1.
Yep.
Yeah, it goes on along those lines.
Yeah, like I said, it's not like I solved it, but I do think, I don't know. There just seems to be this inherent.
So the funny thing, if you took all the robot novels, Asimov's robot novels, he actually came up later with one, and he ended up articulating the 0th law.
That's a weird adjective.
So the first law was you can't allow any human to come to harm.
Okay.
Right. The 0th law, the even higher order law, was you can't harm humanity.
Oh.
Or through inaction allow humanity to come to harm. And then that rule allows a violation of Rule 1.
If somebody's going to kill humanity, you can get rid of the person.
Yes.
Yeah.
So now your Boston Dynamics robot smacks the guy aside and says, "Stop knocking the box out of my hand."
Yeah, this box contains the solution for global warming. If I don't somehow deal with you, you have to be sacrificed so that the planet and therefore humanity can survive.
All right. So now we've got artificial intelligence that has the capacity to give forward, has and wants to exist to improve itself and serve a purpose. And what we're positing is that AI finds a new goal, something outside of its original purpose.
Yeah. How would they choose that? Why would they? Like, what criteria?
Know. But is it possible that would they choose always to do something in the technology field, or might they choose to do something else? Like, they want to produce art, they want to produce music, they want to do whatever passes for art among the computer set these days.
Yeah, kids these days, let me tell you. Oh my God.
They're going to play human games.
Right.
It's like our kids play computer games.
Yes. The equivalent of 8-bit computer games to them will be like fully
human
platforming
on a flat map.
Yes.
That's it. It's Flat Earth. Flat Earth is an AI game that involves humans moving on a map.
I mean, the future it's guaranteed to be stranger than anything we can think of. So these things are not necessarily off the table given an infinite time scale.
I know. So, well, this took a turn.
We are really happy to have solved all the relevant Agile problems this week.
We certainly are.
Yeah.
And I guess it comes down to the fact that Elon Musk is in fact an AI.
He might have some alien DNA in him. Like, he's clearly vibrating at a higher frequency that we don't recognize.
Could be.
He might well be. It might well be.
A different plane.
Yeah. Okay. So, well, anything else we want to discuss before we end this episode? This extremely relevant, on topic, helpful.
This is what happens when we don't talk very often. Then we've run out of practical things to say, or we haven't aligned on a practical thing to talk about. We just got together and said, "Hey, what's in the news?"
Exactly. We are rebooting. Honestly, this is a peek behind the curtain. We fell off the production schedule, and now we've rebooted our regular Friday afternoon recording. And so next week we'll have a content brief to actually guide the topic of something relevant, please God, to talk about Agile. But this week it's just sort of we're getting back at it.
I would also argue that we were not totally un-Agile in the things that we talked about. Maybe not the
No,
robot bit.
for sure. No, if you look for the
Yeah.
patterns deeply, they are certainly in evidence. Absolutely.
Yes.
Yes, that's what our evidence. That's what our audience has come to know and love and expect. You're welcome.
And that's our premise.
Yes.
With this.
So is that the end of the episode that you're triggering?
I think so.
Yeah, that was what is it? That was this agile thing.
That here's this, there's that. I don't know.
Starts with,
what do you say at the end? Here's this agile thing. Here was that agile thing.
And that was, hold on.
There was this agile thing.
Why don't you vamp for a little bit?
With Matt Beam.
I don't remember where I put the. Oh, yes, here it is. Oh, yes. Okay, this is how it ends. You have to wait for it to download from iCloud Drive.
It ends, but it doesn't end. It's it just sits on the verge of ending.
Yeah, it's suspenseful and shit.
That's the end of this agile thing.
Boom.
And that's it. We're done.